Dr. Gay, let's got to start off with you because once again, we do have this stigma in the black community when it comes, especially black men right now. Sure. Where does that come from? What's the history of this stigma? Why are we so afraid of getting therapy?
Well, I think all black people understand that there is a overall suspicion and a mistrust, just in general, of the medical profession, and of course that lends itself into the mental health profession. And the average black person understands, you say Tuskegee experiment, that's all. I'm not going to see a doctor, I'm not going to go see a medical doctor, I'm not going to go see a doctor that's going to try to get into my head. And that starts way back. I mean, we can go all the way back to slavery, but certainly I like to take it at least to 1879. Okay. 1879, there was a theorist named Wilhelm Wundt. He was a doctor. Right, you know this, right? He was a doctor, and he's the one that is considered to really be the father of psychology. Okay. However, in his quest for using psychology as a medium, it wasn't necessarily a therapy at first. It was just about understanding behavior, understanding the mind and behavior. Thank you. And so, as a result, we take him, 1879. He had a disciple named Edward Titchener. Okay. Edward Titchener had a lot to do with one of the Ivy Leagues, founding one of the Ivy Leagues. And so you have all these white men, and now they're already pathologizing black people because we were just slaves. We weren't even considered human. So we're coming through Europe, and we move over into the westernized thought system with a guy named James, a guy by the name of Dr. James, and he actually is the father of American psychology. Okay. All right, now the reason this history is relevant...
Yeah, break it down.
...is because it all originates in Africa. This is the one thing that we don't realize, and it's what I use when I tell black people, it really is your business to concern yourself with psychology. Because, of course, the cradle of civilization, and intellectual civilization, is where? In Africa. All right, so the ancient KMTs, the ancient Egyptians, Northern Africa, Egypt, is Africa. And so they had these temples and everything, and they studied the soul of man, the soul of man. The Greeks came along, people like Aristotle and Plato, right? And Alexander the Great went down into Africa, pillaged and plundered and stole all of the rich libraries and everything that concerns himself with all of the studying that Africans were doing. Because they didn't concern them, Africans didn't really concern themselves with trying to make it a commodity.
Gay, I hear you, and I love the history lesson, we can look it up. But you know, a lot of black people don't know about that stuff right now. What about right now? I mean, I understand the history and everything, and you're talking about this Tuskegee the experiment. I was actually in a play about the Tuskegee experiment or whatever. But at the same time, what about today? We are so knowledgeable now. We got something called Google. Everybody got a computer. We can look up and find out the things. We've had a lot of things that's happened in our history that we've overcome. Right. So when we're looking back on that history, why is it still bottling us up right now?
Because it's still used to pathologize us as black people. As late as the 70s, now we're talking strict psychology. Here in California, in Los Angeles Unified School District, in the 70s, they were doing testing, like IQ testing, things of that nature. And they were doing it on our kids. And parents didn't know the difference, but they were finding that a large portion of black kids in the Los Angeles Unified School District were coming up either mildly mentally retarded or at best a cognitive deficit, a learning disability. And it was like about 70 to 80% of the kids. And this went on for years until somebody questioned it and said, wait a minute, these tests that you're using to test our kids to say that they're less than, that they don't have the cognitive intellectual capacity, they are biased against our kids. All right, so you take that and let that sweep through. You take Brown versus Board of Education and let that sweep through. You take the work that Kenneth Clark and Mamie, his wife, did with the Brown doll test. You let all of this stuff sweep through, and it just is pervasive in our community. So people don't want to trust it. Why would I trust the very thing that is used to pathologize me before I even get there?
Well, hell, I'm scared now. I mean, like, you think about it, I'm like, you're talking about everything. It's like let me ask you, Dwight, you've gone through this. Yes. Why do you trust it? How did you overcome everything that he's talking about right now to seek therapy?
I saw the results. I saw the immediate results. I felt comfort in it. I felt trust with the person providing the therapy, and I saw immediate results. So that's why I believed in it.
No, I like to hear what he's saying.
Okay, all right. So you're talking about the stigma or whatnot and how we can overcome that as black men or whatever. Everything that you're hearing him say, Give me your thoughts on what you've heard him say and how we as black people should get past everything that's happened to us in our history to seek the therapy we need now.
Given our history, and I've studied a little bit about it as well, and going to what you said as far as seeing the results, for me, I was feeling a certain way mentally and emotionally, and I got tired of feeling that way. And, you know, repeating the same thing, expecting different results is a definition of insanity. Well, I'm not insane, so let me try something else. So it really was just for me, just trying and taking a leap of faith, if you want to call it that. And that was really what got me to go to therapy. And I know we'll probably talk about this later, but I know we always say pray it away. And prayer without action is just that. It's a wish. You have to have action with your prayer. And so I was thinking, like, all right, well, let me put some action to what's going on with my mind and my emotions. And that's really what it was. It was just taking a jump, and it worked. And so that's why I'm here now.
And when you're here now.
But how do you like? I have a son, right? And he jumps all around, and the teachers, no, seriously,
It's ADD.
and the teacher's like, he needs some pills.
Right.
And I was like, no, I don't think he needs no pills. You know, and that kind of like, they all, like the teachers, the first thing they want to do is put the kids on pills.
Medication, right.
At like 5 years old. I don't believe in that, putting no kids on no pills at no 5 years old. So how do we deal with that with the teachers and all that?
See, that's part of the stigma. That's part of the reason why people won't do it, right? Because, I mean, we've got in our community, drugs is an issue. We don't want our kids drugged early on. And so we don't really know. Some things could be diet, but a lot of times, again, that pathology runs rampant, not just with doctors, but even teachers. You see a black kid up and down, seemingly up and down. You know, if it's a white kid, often we say they're exploring their environment. They're learning to trust their own autonomy. A black kid, he needs to be medicated. Ain't got no daddy at home, probably just ripping and running, that sort of thing. And so that thought system is pervasive. And so parents like you go, well, wait a minute, I don't want that. Well, now you're being resistant to the educational process, and you and your kid are impeding the educational process for all the other kids in the room because you don't want to get your kid the help that he needs. When in actuality, on some level unconsciously, you're probably thinking, wait a minute, I don't want to medicate my kid first off. Right. Maybe there's something else. And I think in the back of all of our minds, it's because of the long history of let's just pathologize them, give them a pill, move them over here. And whether or not you consciously realize that as a black person, I think it's ever present in our heads and our minds. People like me help to say, wait a minute, you're in pain? Let's do something about it. You can trust me.
You got to ask yourself if you can actually trust somebody. But I think sometimes, we do it to ourselves. You can talk about the history and what white people do to us, whatever, and what some medical doctors do. And of course, I believe all of that is true. But I also think one of the stigmas, and the big reason we have this stigma in our community is because there are other people, our peers, who will tell us it is a sign of weakness. I'm just going to go ahead and confess and give some clarity to this whole situation, just be transparent. About 12 years ago, I was depressed. I had just lost my job. I had a family to feed or whatnot, and I couldn't find work. And I was in a depression. Went, talked to the doctor. Doctor told me I felt like depressed, gave me the medicine or whatever, came back home, and the person I was with at the time said, "You're not depressed. You're not depressed. That's for people who are weak." You know, so sometimes when you go through something like, and I felt some kind of way about that. That happens all the time among us, because if you are asking for help, especially as a black man, you are emotionally weak. Speak on that.
That's real.
And that's why black men don't like going to therapy. That's why black men don't like going to therapy, because when somebody tells, hey, you're weak, you know, especially somebody you love, and was she your lady or something?
Yeah, she was my wife at the time. Maybe that's why we divorced.
So when your lady tells you you're weak, you like, okay, then you shut down.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's real. Really, that's real. And you're absolutely right, and that happens. And it's tough already being a black man in America, right? The last thing we want, it's what we call a double bind, right? Our parents raise us to be, you got to be a strong black man. Women want to marry a strong black man. So then you show some sign of weakness and you're depressed, and rightly so, you lose your job. What are you going to do? Right. Right? I've got to feed you. And then they will tear you down. So now not only are you depressed, now you're being emotionally and psychologically abused. You really need some help by that point, but you can't get it because at least you're acknowledging, you're giving into the diagnoses from your loved one already, or from your boys. It's real.
With that,